Grade. So our unit now is about painting. If you don't have paints at home, that's okay. There are options for you. You can use the Sumo Paint program or you can use Sketchpad. The links for both of those are on Google Classroom. So don't worry if you don't have paints at home. That's okay. All right. There's a way that we can do it digitally. All right. Now, we're going to be looking at something in art called atmospheric perspective. Okay. You can see a couple examples over here. We can see those. There we go. All right. So with atmospheric perspective, what that means is the further away something is, usually the more faded the color will be of that. And the reason for that is air. If you think about air, it's mostly clear, right? But in air, there's water vapor, right? Like clouds and fog. And the further away something is, the more water vapor is in between your eyes and that object. So that can fade the color over distance, okay? So in both these paintings, I have layers, sections of ground and sky. Okay, especially in this one. It's nice and easy to see in this one. Okay, I've got 1, 2, 3 layers of ground, the foreground, which is closest to you, and then you have that. This is kind of the midground, a little bit behind it, and then the background we have the sky. So I've done several layers for the sky. The thing with atmospheric perspective is we're going to start with darker, more bold colors closer to us, and then as we get further away, see how the color fades? You've got the dark blues to the light blue. Same for this one. We have the dark teal, very light. So you go, the closer it is, darker, the further away, lighter. Now, with the sky, you're actually going to be doing the opposite, thinking about it in the opposite way. We're usually closer to the horizon or closer to where the sky meets the ground. There's not the things in the way. It's lighter, closer, lighter, and then as you get further away, it's darker. So it's actually going to be the opposite. When you do your land sections, it's going to go darker to lighter, and then from the sky, it's going to go lighter to darker. See that too. Other example, Big Ben right here, okay? So you can see that here as well, where you go from darkest, bolder colors to lighter, and then the sky starts light and gets darker. Okay, so let's sketch out a plan and let's talk about how we're going to do this. Okay, so get the camera down here. Okay, I have my paper ready and got some water and a paintbrush, and I've got my paint set ready. Okay, I'm actually going to start by drawing. Okay, so I'm going to do one that's a little bit like that mountain scene that you saw in the example before. Okay, so remember I said I want at least 3 layers in each section. So 3 for the ground, 3 for the sky. I might do a little more, but let's just start with the foreground closest. So in mine, I think I'll do mine kind of wintry instead. So maybe I'll start with kind of some spruce trees in the foreground. Pencil kind of loose, getting some shapes in there, heading down, and then maybe have a smaller one over here a little bit. This is like a layer, so I went from one side to the other. Okay, I've had some pretty interesting solutions to this project in the past. Some people have done like a Pokemon battle, and they had the different layers of a Pokemon gym as it went back further, and they had 2 different Pokemon on each layer, kind of doing their battle. So that was kind of a fun little different one. People have done Christmassy ones for this, and all kinds of different ways of doing this project. So for this one, I'm just thinking of some kind of mountains and trees. I'm just going to do my next layer, just kind of outline of kind of a pine forest. That pencil loose in different shapes like that. I'm going to add one more further away, smaller. But don't just go straight across. Usually try to give it a little variety. Maybe there's a little valley here, so it comes down, then as I come up over here. Okay, so I've got 1, 2, 3 sections. You know what? I think I want another one right here. Maybe a little bit of a hill or background area behind that little valley. Okay, so now I've got some sections for that. And I think for this one, I'm going to do it a little different. Maybe I'll do like a moonrise as the moon comes up. So I might start Well, maybe we'll have a little bit of a crescent moon there, like that. And then just do kind of some half circle shapes as I come outward. Now I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sections for the background. Okay. So what I'm going to do now is paintbrush. I'm going to start in the foreground. You can start where you like, but I think it's easier to start in the foreground. Going to mix up a little bit of black paint, a little bit of water in there, really stir it around. These are tempera cake paints, so they can be a little bit thicker if you do take your time and spin on them. If you're at home and using a different kind of paint, it might be a little different, but these ones usually get you a pretty good dark tone if you really mix it up like that. I'm just gonna, if you think of it a little bit like color by number, we're gonna fill in this first section. But of course, we can mix it up. It doesn't all have to be exactly the same color, like in a color by number. We make it a little more artistic by adding some other tones in there. So I think for this one, I'm gonna do kind of some purpley bluish tones. So I'm gonna mix up purple, blend that into that black, nice dusky purple color. More there. And pretty much the main idea is that I'm going to fill in this whole first section with this color, or at least similar. Oops, similar to that color. Nice thing with paint, if you make a mistake, you just paint over it. No big deal. All right. Like Bob Ross used to always say, no such thing as mistakes, only happy little accidents. Just work with your mistakes. It's really not a big deal. The nice thing about art is it's usually pretty flexible. I'm just going to do this tree for right now. We're going to move on to another section. Okay. That's good for right now. All right. Now, a little more careful with that. Okay. So now I want to move on to this next section that's a little bit behind it, the mid-ground there. So maybe with this one, I'll just start with that purpley color so it stands out against a really dark foreground. Like that. So mostly using just regular purple there. Don't forget, if you need to thin out your brush or your paint, you want a little bit lighter, you can add a little bit of water to it. I tend to like the paint a little bit thicker, so I like to let it dry and put another layer on top. That will give you a little more nice thicker look to it, more like acrylic paint. Here. Okay. And I would continue that along there, that next section. Now I've got another section here. We want to keep getting lighter. So what do I need to do this time? Well, we start with a little purple, but then we need to add some white paint. Some white. I mix that up. Then blend that on in. There we go. Nice light kind of lilac-y purple there. And I'm going to go along and fill in this next section now. And don't forget the other side too. Again, I'm just doing just a little quick demo for this, so we got to keep moving on. Okay, and then finally in that last one, super pale. We want mostly white, just a hint of that. Barely, kind of that pinkish, purplish color. And if you want to do multiple colors or if there's other details you want to add, you know, that's totally completely fine. You know, if we added some animals or some green bushes, that's okay. You can add other things, but atmospheric perspective mainly about showing the landscape and how the colors fade as they get back further. It doesn't have to change the little details that you put on there. Okay. Okay. So that's the ground part. All right. That's just one part of this project. Okay. That's filling all that in carefully with the right tones is going to take you most of your first day on this. Okay. So for the second day, we're going to work on the sky. Okay. Now, what I would like to do is make kind of a night sky. Okay. So I'm going to also use purple at the top, but I'm not just going to, I don't want it to look exactly the same as the bottom. So I'm going to do like a purple blue, mix those together. Start putting that on there. First little section that we sketched out before. Okay. And we definitely want that lighter because we want to start lighter and get darker. I'm going to mix up some more white paint. And that's in. There we go. Then I'm going to go to my next one. This should be a little bit darker than the first. Again, I'm doing purple blue. So I need some purple. Fill in this next section. And, as you need to do adjustments, it's fine. You can always add a little more paint. If I decide it's not quite dark enough, maybe I'll add a little more paint there. Okay. Next one, just going to continue right on with it. A little bit darker. Blue, purple. After this one, though, really need it darker. So what I want to do, we start to add a little bit of black. Blue, there, purple, give this a hue, the main color, and then blend together. Okay. Again, I would usually give a second coat to this because right now it's very watery. I definitely want a thicker paint look like when I showed you the example one at the beginning. And then the final one on the very outside ring, really dark, really, really dark. Start with black, add blue, add some purple. Really final section up there. Okay. All right. So that's the basic idea. Okay. Remember, at least 3 layers in your foreground, middle ground, and then try to do at least 3 for the top as well. I'm going to flip the camera around again. You can see that example. You can it's over here without spilling anything. All right. So yeah, this one's had a few layers. So you can see how nice and dark those and thick those paints are. That's what we're looking for our final version. Okay. All right, guys. That's all for now. Have fun and have a nice day.